In this tutorial, we're looking at how to upload a full body replacement costume to the Space Virtual World platform. To follow this tutorial, you will need to have installed Unity, imported the Space Editor Pack, and registered as a creator in the Space Virtual World. Space allows creators to replace the platform's own standard customizable avatar with an alternative model of their own, another type of biped perhaps originally created for a different project, or a completely different creature, including quadrupeds with their own animation controllers, or in this case, an octoped. If you are uploading a biped, you do not need to bring your own animations mapped to that skeleton. Space supports the Unity mechanism system, so our existing walks, idles and gestures will all work automatically on your model. If you want to bring your own animation controller for an animal or for a character with its own movements, you just need to set up an animation controller in Unity and add it to the same virtual good as the character model when you upload it. First, let's look at a humanoid model. Here I have a soldier. It's a beautifully made model from the Unity Asset Store. In theory, I could take every element of this model, the helmet, the pants, the jacket, and rig them as independent clothing items that could be worn on the Space standard avatar, combined with other clothing items from other creators. But that's a lot of work, and for many use cases, it simply isn't necessary. There may be no requirement for the character model to be combined with clothing items from other creators. For this model, which is very much a complete work in its own right, and might be used for a particular game or as part of a machinima or something similar, all I want to do is deploy it as a unified costume without separating mesh items and without needing to skin mesh items to a different model. So to upload this as a full body replacement costume, I first need to apply some basic settings to the FBX file I've imported into Unity. If you are using a model from the Unity Asset Store, the chances are it's already configured. If you are importing your own model, when you drop it into Unity, come to this panel in the inspector. Click on Rig, then in the Animation Type drop-down, choose Humanoid. And in the Avatar Definition drop-down, choose Create from this model. You can open the configuration panel here to see how Unity has interpreted the biped skeleton. So long as all the bones are green, you can be confident the existing movement, pose and gesture animations will translate across OK. If any of the bones are red, it means the pose needs some manual adjustment, usually a minor rotation around the shoulders or wrists, before Unity is clear on the translation from one model to another. If you are using a model from the Asset Store, you will probably have a prefab as well as the underlying FBX model in the pack you bought. Drag the prefab into the scene. You need to make sure the Apply Root Motion tick box is unchecked. If it's grayed out, drag the asset in your scene back into a folder in your project and it will create a new prefab and you will be able to untick Apply Root Motion. That's all you need to do in order to prepare your model to be used as a full body replacement costume in space. Now you just need to add the model to a virtual good component so you can upload it. This process is the same as for other clothing and accessory items. Create an empty game object in your scene and add the clothing item settings component by clicking Add Component in the inspector. You can tick all the slots, marking it as a full costume where other items cannot also be worn. For this model, I'm leaving the last tick box unticked because I'm not uploading this with its own animation controller. I'll show you that next using an animal model. Tick Keep Material Always if you only have one version of the textures. If you watch our clothing patterns tutorial, you'll be able to see how to upload a single mesh and then a range of associated textures, which customers can choose from. Tick Attachment and then open the Custom Skeleton section. Make sure any changes made to your newly configured model are applied to the version in your project by highlighting it in the Scene window and clicking Apply in the inspector. Then drag the copy in your project folder into the Root Template field in the Custom Skeleton section. Now add the virtual goods component to the same empty game object. Set the type to clothing. Fill out the rest of the form as you would for any other virtual good or clothing item, and submit. Remember, you have to drag this new object you have created into the project too before submitting. You can't submit the virtual good from the copy in your scene. To keep things simple, I've named my actual model soldier_winter, and the game object with the clothing items settings component and the virtual good component is dragged into the same folder and named soldier_winter VG. Now let's look at the additional work involved in uploading a costume with its own set of animations. This spider, again from the Asset Store, has been set up as a prefab with Apply Root Motion unticked. In the rig of the underlying FBX file, the animation type is set to generic. It is not a humanoid, and there's no chance of translating animations across from our walks or poses. So instead, we have an animation controller. There are tutorials on the Unity website for creating controllers, but this is a simple one that handles an idle pose, walking, running and jumping. You can create a new controller from scratch, or you can duplicate and modify the existing player controller in your project. I drag the controller into the clothing item settings component and then copy the parameters into the property fields below. Even if you do not wire any animations to them in your controller, you do still need to have the parameters. You can see them here on the left in the Parameters tab of the Animator window, which I open by double-clicking on the animation controller. These 9 parameters, magnitude, angle, vertical, horizontal, fly vertical, floor angle, is falling, is jump and is flying, have to be present in your controller. You can create them with the plus button here if you do not have them already. Then ensure their name is referenced in the fields on the Clothing Items Settings component. Now I can upload the virtual good just as with any other clothing item. The character model and its associated animations are both attached, and when I get in world, I can run around with all 8 legs and jump out in front of unsuspecting strangers.